now we are going to go to the first point of the agenda, which is perhaps a global picture of what is happening in each country region in terms of a political, economical, social point of view.
Well, if you haven't noticed, we've got a lot of things going on due to an election. So as is typical in any election year, there tends to be a lot of inactivity in businesses. I don't quite understand it, having seen it go through many cycles, but people tend not to want to make decisions in an election year. We also have a lot of confusion regarding what the rules are.
So yeah, we have a two-party system. So we have conservatives that are currently in power, and we have a federation with a federal government, and then we've got states and territories. So a little bit like what Dave said in the US, that the states make their own rules in relation to COVID, and we have a lot of borders closed between states currently. So you've probably heard Melbourne, Victoria is one of our states. Melbourne's in complete shutdown. It's just had a second wave of COVID with high numbers. So yeah, each state is kind of doing their own thing. We have really strict quarantine. So I'll talk later about the numbers of COVID. The country's been able to really manage the healthcare system and manage those numbers by shutting their borders. Our key industries in Australia are agriculture, mining, tourism, and financial sector.
It's a crisis that we don't have a lot of experience in the world, and has been impacting all the economies and all the countries after that very hard. But without going into COVID situation, I think that Europe before COVID was also struggling a little bit with the Brexit situation, which was interesting because the first things that we were seeing in the industry, in the economy, was actually a lot of companies that were actually moving some investment decisions from the UK to Europe to keep the Eurozone. And this was bringing benefits to Spain, to Germany, to France, to Italy. And obviously when COVID started, all this, get into a second phase, let's say. And, it is kind of freeze all the investments and the decisions around how Europe is gonna work after Brexit. The impact of COVID in Spain was not good at all, as the whole country, but Spain in particular. So just to give you an overview, but the unemployment rate in Spain was around 13%, which was pretty high comparing to the other countries in the Eurozone. Obviously, Germany has less than 3%, or used to have less than 3%, or France, which 6%, Italy with 8%. So Spain was the one that was struggling mostly to recover from that already old crisis. But the trend was looking good. Investments over this year, actually, before COVID, was looking really good. There was a lot of things going on in different sectors.
But of course, every sector, every industry was impacted. There was no basin for any industry for COVID. So we had, of course, in tourism, we have the greatest impact. But also, if you think about technology, that is a typical industry with zero unemployment, you're going to find that at the first impact, many of their customers stop the projects and say, okay, let's see how it evolves.
So obviously COVID had a big effect on business in Australia, and the government jumped in very quickly and provided grants. So there was grants for small businesses, there was tax concessions, and then they also launched something called Job Keeper to try and keep people in the jobs. And then also Job Seeker for those that are looking for work. So they paid people over $1,000 a fortnight. So employers could hold on to their staff and help pay their wages. So that's been really helpful. That was due to come to an end in September, but they've extended that until March. So that's made a big difference. The government here is really looking to keep businesses going and not let them have to lose staff. So as a result, our unemployment rates have shifted slightly. So last year they were at 5.3%. This year they're 6.8%. So obviously there has been a change. There's over 1 million people unemployed, but the government is really looking now that they just had our budget was announced today, and they're really looking to cut taxes.
Our extended unemployment benefits ended the end of July, and that's when things really started to get serious and people started to try to return to work because they no longer were getting a paycheck for not working. About 20 million people were rehired during that time frame. There's still a lot of lost jobs. And if you look in September, some massive layoffs, places like Disney laying off, 28,000 people, American Airlines laying off over 20,000 people. So, there's large groups that are being impacted by this. 1 in 6 small businesses has collapsed during this time. So when you look at it, that's pretty astronomical in terms of the number of people who were affected. I would only
add to that, to what we're seeing is banking. I don't know how, but the banks, they always find ways of making money. So, and here the banking industry is having also, movement and creating some jobs right now. A lot of, and then also a lot of companies, even the ones that are going into very hard moments. Typically what happens in crisis is finance is growing, right? We see a lot of open positions in controlling, in taxing, in purchases and buyers, because companies are trying to find efficiencies.
We have some labor opportunities, but we cannot fill them. And we think that we need around 3,000 people now to cover open opportunities in IT industry that we are not covering. Because of that, today IT jobs are not so important in the figures, in the data we are seeing for employment in the country.
So industries, I think there is a common trend around technology, logistics, and healthcare.
I believe the health and the education industry are one of the future industries that will constantly demand train, because it's evolving every year. New jobs, perhaps not new for you, but for the market, like digital transformation people and growing hacking people. It was really new for me, the growing hack manager or the growing hack specialist. Those are for the e-commerce are now in demand in Uruguay. Due to the construction of the pulp mill, a new port, and the railway we are having in Uruguay, there's a lot of engineering around. So we are in demand of engineers this year in particular. As I said, software developers and some accountants.
Regulated in terms of immigration. It's true that we have the benefit, let's say, of being part of the Union, of the European Union. And as you know, especially in Latin America and particularly in Argentina, there's a lot of people with double citizenship from Spain, Italy, or any other country, in my case, Belgium. So that makes things very easy.
So I think this is a perfect time to start networking. And so many executives and managers are on LinkedIn.
If you're thinking about this, you need to be a top performer in your current role, and it needs to be a unique and identifiable skill set. And if you've got that, then you can take the next step, which is you begin your networking very seriously. And people are much more available for networking now because they're at home, their work from home situation, they're in less meetings. So, and they're more willing to spend time before or after normal business hours connecting with people. So go ahead and network.